Well, now a domestic abuse case in Poli County getting national attention. Taylor Irby separated and filed for divorce from her husband Joseph 6 months ago and got a restraining order against him. 2 weeks ago, he was charged with domestic violence, aggravated battery for allegedly trying to run her off the road and ramming her car. The next day, after his bond hearing, she went to his place, took his guns, brought them to police, and admitted to police she did what she did in fear for her life. She was charged with armed burglary, spent 6 days in jail. Hillsborough State Attorney Andrew Warren says the law doesn't have the teeth to protect women.
There's no effective mechanism, as we've talked about, to make sure that people who are not allowed to own guns don't own guns. So if someone's going to hide a gun that they have, or they're going to loan it to somebody else and then get it back, it's really hard to enforce that. That's why we need other strategies in place, like universal background checks.
Anna, you've been very outspoken that these charges should be dropped.
Yeah, I have, absolutely. I mean, the reality is that our judicial system for a very long time has not served survivors of domestic violence well. And when I saw this pop up in my Twitter feed last week, I jumped to action and wrote a letter to the state attorney of Polk County asking him not to prosecute Taylor Irby, because the reality is that she was doing what she thought was the right thing to do. A judge had already said that her estranged husband could not own firearms. She knew he possessed them. And she did something to protect herself and her children after telling a judge that she felt like her life was at risk. And so her decision to do that was one that police could have had discretion on deciding what action to take, and they should have supported this survivor, provided her with resources so that she does feel safe along with her children, not incarcerate her.
Adam?
Criminalizing a victim is never the right answer. And as lawmakers, it's our job to find where our laws do not fit and be able to fix them and correct them. Right now, for example, if she had waited at home with those firearms and shot her husband when he got home, under stand your ground laws, she would be in zero trouble with the law whatsoever. There's problems on both sides of that entire situation, but no one should be criminalized for protecting themselves and ultimately following the order of a judge of who should have a firearm.
Well, look, there was a lawful order out that prohibited this gentleman from keeping his guns. I went ahead and looked at the charges filed against the estranged wife, and she was charged with two things. She was charged with grand theft of a firearm, and she was charged with armed burglary. Well, let's look at grand theft of a firearm. Grand theft means that you stole something with the intent to either deprive someone of their right, or that you were going to appropriate it to yourself. She did neither. Mm-hmm. She didn't intend to, he didn't have the right to keep those guns, and she didn't intend to appropriate them to herself. She brought them to the police station. And then armed burglary, well, to commit burglary, you have to have an intent to commit an offense when you enter the premises. Obviously, there was no predicate offense. And then the second thing is about armed burglaries. It has to be a dangerous weapon. There was nothing that I saw in any of the reports that I looked at that this weapon was loaded at the time that she appropriated and therefore dangerous. So it's a real stretch of the statutes just from a legal perspective.
And a lot of people are confused about that armed burglary because she didn't have a gun, but she was leaving with the gun.
Yeah, and that's a stretch.
Yeah.
The statute says that if you become armed during the burglary, that's armed burglary. I think that's a stretch. But then the next layer of this is prosecutors have discretion. Police have discretion.
Absolutely.
Folks should be exercising their discretion.
I think this sounds like this is something that we can all agree on.